Hiya, I just wanted to make a video about my experience with mental health. I don't know what order it's going to take, so it'll probably jump around a bit because I haven't noted anything down. Normally I would like to make a wee order when I'm making a video, but I just kind of want to talk from the heart. Mental health is something that's really important to me. I've done a lot of work over the years on myself, on my own mental health, because I think really once your mental health is poor, it really impacts on all other areas of your life and other people. So it's something that I hold very precious, and it's something that is always a priority in my life to make sure my mental health is as good as it can be, because that's not always been the case. So I'm 44 this month and I've pretty much suffered from mental health issues most of my life, really. I can remember as far back as high school just being really depressed, not knowing what it was at the time. I did have a difficult childhood. I'm not going to really go into that. It was a difficult childhood. It was far from idyllic. But I can remember at high school, even just walking home from school and just looking up to the sky. I remember this day clear as anything. I remember exactly what uniform I had on, with the shoes, the way my hair was, the earrings I had in. And I remember just looking up to the sky and just saying, just drop a bomb. That's how depressed I felt. And it was just this dark cloud. It really was not pleasant at all. And I remember another time when I took singing as my music choice in third year, I think it was, third or fourth year. And I remember just being in the room with my singing instructor, and I was singing. I think there was a woman in the room as well, the music teacher, and I think it was part of an exam. And I had to sing this song, and it was like a Scottish song, but it was so chirpy and upbeat, and I was not feeling chirpy and upbeat. Everything was just so dark, and I just burst into tears. And I think that they thought it was because, I was nervous about the exam or embarrassed about singing, but it was because I just felt so depressed. I think having the depression, so I had that. I left home at a very young age. I think I was 15. At 16 I was living in a homeless accommodation, and not long after I got my first flat. So I was 16 when I had my first flat. When I think back to that now, that's just a bit crazy. But anyway, I did have my first flat at 16. It was obviously overwhelming. It was a lot to take on. And I remember definitely feeling depressed, definitely feeling alone and isolated. And I'm pretty sure I started getting antidepressants from the age of 16. I think the next real thing then was after I had my first baby. So I had my eldest daughter Shara when I was 18, like just turned 18, and I got postnatal depression, and it was really bad. I can remember Shara was such an easy baby, and she was so placid and just cute, and she slept well, but I was on my own. I was in a wee flat, not near any friends or family, on my own with a baby. And I remember loving the cuddles, loving, looking after her. But I remember having these fits of just, frustration, anxiety, just sadness. And I would throw her bottle. I remember throwing her bottle across the room. And when that happened, I was like, right, now's time to go see the doctor again. So I went to see the doctor again, who put me back on antidepressants. And I think I had to keep trying a few different ones to help. And I think it must have settled. I definitely made wrong choices when it came to partners. Probably also as a result of the childhood and just having, just not feeling great within myself, not really establishing who I am at this point in life. So yeah, I suffered for quite a while, for many years, with depression, and it would, flare up at certain times. It would get worse at certain times than others. After a while, anyway, I ended up with 4 kids and loved the kids so much, loved being a mum, but again was very much on my own. So I raised them on my own and I wasn't getting the babysitters or anything like that. I was pretty much on my own with these 4 kids. And at one point, my mental health just got so bad. And it's the one area of my life. I always say that I don't have any regrets in life. What my experiences have made me who I am today. But my one regret is how my mental health at this time impacted on my children. So my mental health got so bad at one point, I was having anxiety, panic attacks every single day. I didn't really understand them at the time, so I thought that I was dying, like legit thought I was dying. My heart would go so fast that I thought it was going to stop. I was hyperventilating, my throat would close up. It was really, truly awful. And I remember one day just being round my sister's house, so she stayed round the corner, but she also had her own kids as well. But I remember being round at her house and another panic attack happened and I just curled up on the floor. I just couldn't take it anymore. And she phoned the doctors. She actually phoned an ambulance. And the paramedics came out and actually said to me, look, the worst that will happen is you'll pass out, but then you'll just come to and you'll feel better. He was like, I promise you will not die. And that actually was a big help for me, just to hear that. But my mental health continued to get bad despite this. And at this point, I was having suicidal thoughts. And it kind of calmed me down a bit because I was planning how to end it, really. Just because I couldn't take anymore. I couldn't take waking up every day with a panic attack and then panicking about having another panic attack. And it just was a vicious cycle. And I just felt so low, like there was no way out. I did self-harm. Now, I remember self-harming when I was about 15. I didn't know it was called self-harm at the time. I didn't know it was a thing. I just thought, why am I doing this? But it did make me feel better. So I did remember self-harming when I was younger, but I was self-harming again at this point because I just didn't know how to deal with things, and it just sort of seemed to relieve some pressure. But anyway, my mental health got so bad. One of my eldest sister came over actually with my brother and said, what's going on here, what's happening in the house. My house was an absolute state. I've never been that way. I've always been house proud. It was an absolute state. There was, food lying everywhere. I just was not on top of things at all. And she took me into the hospital. And I think they'd all decided amongst them, like my siblings, who would take which of my children. And she took me into hospital and I was told to go to the mental health ward. And then I had to wait for an assessment. So someone came in and spoke to me and said, we need to remove you from this situation. You're not in a good place. You need help. You need support. So I was to go back and stay with my sister that night and then go back the next day. So I went back the next day and I was admitted to the mental health ward. And that was quite scary. And I was initially put to one in Stirling. And then I was moved to the one in Falkirk. And they just made sure I got my medication on time, and it was just really to remove me from really being a mother for a while because it was just too much. It was just way too much. So the kids did. I can feel myself going a wee bit. I really don't want to. This isn't really about me sitting crying, but it is such a difficult time to talk about. So my kids had to go and stay with family, and they all got split up. It turned out to be a few months. So when I got out of the hospital, they still stayed with family members for a bit, and then I got them home. But my mental health was still not great. The depression was still there, but I remember at that time just thinking, if I keep doing this, then this is always going to be the result. They're always going to have to go away and live with other people, and it absolutely devastated them. So I had to make that choice. And I know it sounds easier said than done. Depression, you know, you can't control it. But I learned to understand it. I read up on it. I did everything I could in my power to make sure that this would never happen to the kids again. So rather than just give in to these feelings of, you know, like doom and nothing's ever going to get better, I tried really hard to understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling and what I could do to help myself. So, and it was no magic fix overnight. I continued to read up. Then I moved. I got a house move we were living in a flat at the time. I got a move to a house with a front and back garden. That really did help a lot because it meant, you know, the kids could get out to play more. And I started volunteering for a charitable organisation, Home Start, which was to help other families who are struggling with young kids. And that actually really helped me. And at the same time, I started writing. So every day I would write down 3 positive things that had happened. But then I just started writing alongside that all the things that were happening on the flip side of it. And actually it turned it into a book. And I would love to get it published one day. But yeah, I did that for a whole year, and that really, really helped train my brain to be a bit more optimistic. So I still had my moments, I was still having days where, I was just feeling lousy with depression, feeling under pressure, just being a mother to 4 kids. But some days I would learn, okay, this is maybe just because your period's due, so that would really impact on my depression. Or, you're just having a bad few days. So then I would learn to just, you just need to rest. Just accept that that's what it is. This isn't going to be a big 6-month, year thing. It's just you're having a rough couple of days. Take time to rest. Just chill out, watch some movies. Don't try and overthink it to be, spiral out of control. So that really helped as well. Yeah, during this time, I think that was when my antidepressants got changed. So part of my depression was that I couldn't sleep. I just couldn't switch off at night. My brain was always going, constant. And so I said to the doctor, and they put me on a different antidepressant, but one that has a sedative in it. So it's mirtazapine. So I'm on the highest dose of mirtazapine, and I still am to this day. And that was about 2005 that I got given those. So even to this day, if I miss a few days, I cannot switch off at night. I just can't sleep. My brain just won't let me. So I will take those. And I've been on those, and, at this moment in time, I'm feeling pretty stable when it comes to my mental health. After that, I moved again. So I moved to a flat again, but it was in a different area. And for me, it was the best move. It wasn't quite the best move for some of my kids. But it was what I needed, and it just did wonders for my mental health. Another significant thing had happened in my life before moving, so I had been attacked by someone, which, unfortunate was that I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. But that involved a court case and stuff, and that triggered a lot of anxiety. So rather than panic attacks, I think it was just the stress just gave me lots of anxiety. And again, it got into a spiral, it got into that vicious cycle where I would get anxious about being anxious. And part of the symptoms of the anxiety and the stress was IBS, and that has never gone away since. But that gave me anxiety because then the stress would impact, I would get an upset stomach to the point where I was scared to leave the house, and then I would just always worry about that. So to this day, that's probably one of my biggest anxieties when I leave the house. But then I moved, and that was the best thing I could have done. I still suffered with anxiety for a good few years after moving, but then I went back to do my masters and learned to drive, and again, those were all things that just really helped with my mental health. Gave me that bit more independence. Absolutely loved driving. I was so proud of myself. It gave me confidence. And then I went on to do my PhD. And part of the PhD, I would do teaching. And some people would be like, how can you stand up and teach, but you can't ask for the bill in a restaurant or whatever. And it's just the way it is. And again, I've got to psych myself up to do big things like teaching, so that then, because I did it for so long, it just then made everyday things that I would get anxious about, like standing in a queue in the supermarket, it just made all those things seem insignificant. So teaching for me really made me push myself in such a big way. Don't get me wrong, the very first day I thought I was going to pass out. The second day I thought I was going to pass out. Third time I thought, well, I felt like that the first and second time and nothing happened. So it was sort of like a bit of CBT without even trying. So yeah, teaching for me just was so great for my mental health. So at one point during the PhD, I was really lucky enough to get some funding to go do an overseas visit in Sweden. So I was working at a university there for 3 months, and it meant going and living in Sweden on my own. I had never flown before, never really been away from the kids. So this was major for me, and again, I was so proud of myself. Still can't believe I did it. I'm so happy that I had that opportunity. But at one point while I was there on this, so I had split, the 3 months were split up over, so I went for the first half, came back, so I had to run some conferences, and then I went back over. So on the second trip, I did feel, I started watching things on like Prime Video where it was like depressing documentaries, you know, like crime documentaries where people would share their experiences, and they were like harrowing and horrible, and that's something that I've learned not to do, because it really does trigger negative feelings, negative thoughts, and my mental health really took a hit on that trip in Sweden, to the point where I was worrying about how I was going to fly home on my own because I just felt so depressed. So I was able to just pick up on stuff that I'd done over the years, and I was like, right, stop watching that stuff, it's making you depressed. Start watching happy stuff. So I'd watch stand-up comedians, just to kind of snap me out of that, and I would write stuff down. So I used to blog quite a bit. So now I just vlog, but I used to blog quite a bit, and I wrote a blog about how I was feeling, and it really helped. So writing has always been a therapeutic thing for me. So I managed to turn it around and went home quite fine. I was happy to be home, and I managed the journey back on my own. Not long after coming back from Sweden, my physical health, that's when that started going downhill. And then, you know, in 2019 I was diagnosed with dermatomyositis, which then led to interstitial lung disease and type 2 diabetes and all these other things going on with it. But surprisingly, I think because I've done so much work over the years on my mental health, I was able to cope with this really well. And I've not really had many really dark days with the illness, as you would maybe expect. So I feel like I've really coped with it very well. And again, it's just about finding that balance, because sometimes my depression would get bad if I had too many things going on at the one time. You know, if I was trying to have a relationship, raising kids, working, running a house, you know, all these things would always make me get a bit depressed. And that did happen recently, actually. So as lockdown's been easing, there was a point there where I was feeling really unsettled again. You know, my mood was low. I was feeling, you know, what's wrong? What am I missing in life? What is it I'm needing? I thought, you know, I was maybe a bit lonely, so I joined a dating site, and I cancelled that 4 days later because to hell with that. But I think it was just the easing of lockdown, so I was getting out of the house more, so I was having to juggle what I'm doing more. So I'm still trying to do my PhD as well as run a house. Being ill is like a full-time job, managing appointments and medications and stuff, and then being able to go out and see friends and family more. So I think just it helps me just to reflect, just to take time to write things down, like, why am I feeling like this? What could be causing it? And then I was able to help myself figure out that, yeah, it's just because, you know, there's a bit more going on in life now, so it's just about shuffling it again and learning how to balance this new normal. So since being ill, there's been a few things over the years that's helped with my mental health. So as well as, you know, just being reflective, taking time to have a down day, not spiraling out of control that it's going to be this, you know, depression forever and ever and ever. But I've also found that I'm loving colour. So colour, it's just like creating your own sunshine. Colour just helps me, it just brightens my day. I lost my hair when I first got ill, and I'd always had really long hair. And again, wasn't as gutted about that as many people probably thought I would be. But to counteract it, to make myself feel better, I would wear really bright lipstick and bright earrings. So yeah, it's always just about thinking about how I can, you know, feel better, because I don't want to feel sad. I don't want to feel depressed. I don't want to give in to that feeling. It's about, you know, seeing the signs early and how I can change that. And I know that's not always easy for people to do. Sometimes it's just so overwhelming. I've been there. But now I'm just kind of sharing some self-care tips on TikTok and on my Instagram, because I feel very fortunate that I've been able to work on myself, on my own mental health. I feel like I know, you know, I have the tools to do that, but not a lot of people do. So that's why I create these little self-care tips on Instagram and TikTok. But I'm also going to do a playlist here on my YouTube channel. So that's why I'm doing this video just now, just to explain that, you know, this is my experience with mental health. It doesn't come from nowhere. Like I know how it feels, and hopefully by sharing little self-care videos, it will help some people cope with their mental health. So I hope this video has been helpful in some way, and look out for my little self-care videos. Take care.